Hello everyone, hope you all are fine. So I am here with my second lecture of ECG simplified series of my YouTube channel Medical Study. Hope you enjoyed my first lecture that was regarding the very basics of the ECG, that was about ECG leads, placement of ECG leads and the ECG paper. In this lecture too we will be studying about the normal ECG waves. So let us start. First, a brief review of my previous lecture, that is about the ECG paper. It consists of the very small squares, and each small square is equal to 1 millimeter, bounded by 5 small squares bounded by red lines. They are of 5 millimeter, and on x-axis we have the time duration. 1 millimeter square is equal to 0.04 second. On y-axis we have the voltage, and 1 millimeter here is equal to 0.1 millivolt. Before seeing the ECG of any patient, we must see two things. One is the standardization mark, another is the speed of the paper. That standardization mark tell us about the calibration of the machine, that machine is properly calibrated. And this is somewhere here like this. Here it is of 10 millimeter and it shows that 1 millivolt voltage of the machine produces a deflection of 10 millimeter. So it has to be exactly of 10 millimeter size. It will always be shown in this way, or sometime it is written in this way: 10 millimeter is equal to 1 millivolt. And another thing is the speed of the paper, that is 25 millimeter per second. Now let us move to the normal waves in ECG. As you all know, the normal waves of ECG are P wave, Q wave, R wave, S wave, T wave, and sometimes the U wave. So let us see here the P wave, which occurs because of the arterial depolarization. QRS waves forms a QRS complex, that is because of the ventricular depolarization, and that is followed by T wave, which is because of the ventricular repolarization. So before moving further, a brief review of the conduction system of the heart. The SA node sends the impulse to the heart, or the impulse originates from the SA node. It first excites the right atria, then the left atria, moves to AV node to bundle of his to branches of bundle of his, and then there is a depolarization from left to right bundle branch. Now as the wave moves from SA node to AV node, or you can say SA node to right atria, to left atria, and to the AV node, and then to the bundle of his. So this whole time, during this time, the atria depolarize, and when the atria depolarize, the wave appear is P wave. So from SA node to AV node, that this time taken by the impulse going from SA node to AV node and excitation of the atria gives origin to the P wave. This is followed by QRS complex, that is which occur when impulse moves from AV node to bundle of his, and bundle of his to left to right branch of the bundle of his, and then to the ventricles, and that depolarization of ventricles give rise to QRS complex, followed by repolarization of the ventricles. Now one thing to see here, we see the ventricular repolarization in the form of T wave, but there is no arterial repolarization. This occurs because when the arteries are repolarizing, during that time the ventricles are depolarizing, and ventricles dominates the ECG. So arterial wave just submerged somewhere in the QRS complex of the ventricular depolarization. So arterial repolarization waves are not seen actually. Now this is followed by the normal waves. Let us start with the P wave. Do not rectify, just 3 or 4 basic things you need to remember for each wave. Like for P wave, you need to remember this is always positive or upright. I will use two terms, positive deflection and negative deflection. Positive deflection will be the deflections which are above baseline, and negative deflections will be the deflections which are below baseline. So P wave has to be always positive, upright, smooth, rounded or pointed. One thing. Then we need to know the duration and amplitude of P wave. It is 3 small square broader. 1 small square is 0.04 second, so 3 small square is 0.12. So averagely it is 0.1 second wave, and 3 small square taller, that is around 0.25 to 3 millivolt in amplitude. Okay, and so these two things you need to remember in P waves. So P wave is the first positive deflection of ECG. So whenever you see a first positive deflection of ECG, that is basically the P wave. It represents the arterial depolarization, as I have told you. It is always upright, directed upward, rounded or pointed, and smooth. 3 small square broader, that is 0.1 second somewhere, and 3 small square taller, that is 0.25 to 3 millivolt in amplitude. It is always monophasic in almost all the leads, except in lead V1 it may be biphasic. Biphasic means it has two phases, an upright phase and a downward phase, that is a positive and negative deflection of P wave. So it looks somewhere like this. So it is maybe maybe biphasic in V1, but in other leads it is generally monophasic, that is always upright. Now you can see this ECG here. I have marked P wave in lead 2. In lead 2 you can see a small positive deflection, that is P wave. It is somewhere 2 to 3 small square and 2 small squares upright. In 3 lead you can see this small P wave, and in this AVF you can see this small P wave, and in V1 see this V1. In V1 you have a biphasic P wave, an upright deflection and the downward deflection. So this is the biphasic P wave of V1. In V2 also you are seeing a biphasic P wave. This is also normal. But in V3 it is positive, V4 it is positive, V5 it is positive. So it is generally a monophasic wave. First positive deflection, 3 small square larger, 3 small square taller, and it may be biphasic in lead V1 and maybe in V2. So this is about the P wave. This is followed by Q wave. Very important wave. You must learn about this wave. Generally absent, but if present, and if present, if it is larger, it is abnormal. This wave is very important to know about the ischemias and infarctions. So you must carefully look about for the Q waves in the ECG. You must know the normal traits of Q waves, then only you will be able to appreciate what is an abnormal Q wave. So Q wave is basically the first negative deflection of the P wave, or you can say the first negative deflection of the ECG is Q wave, or first negative deflection after P wave is Q wave. So it is the first downward deflection of the ECG, or first downward deflection of ECG after P wave. Represent the interventricular septum repolarization, and septum repolarized from left to right. Very important. Generally absent or very small if present. Larger Q waves are abnormal. So what is the normal Q wave? It has to be small, that is around 2 millimeter negative, that is it is 2 millimeter negatively deflected. So just 2 millimeter, and 1 millimeter broader, that is 0.04 second. So it is 0.2 millivolt in amplitude negatively and 0.04 second in duration. Now see this diagram. We have the left sided leads and the right sided leads. The left side leads are lead 1, lead 2, AVL, V4, V5, V6, and the right sided leads are AVR and lead 3 and V1 and V2. Always remember, there are small Q waves normally present on left side leads, that is lead 1, lead 2, AVL, V5 and V6. And in lead 3, from where the impulse is moving away, because heart excites from base to apex or from right to left. So in right sided leads, lead 3 and AVR, there is larger Q waves. So larger Q waves are generally abnormal, but in right sided leads, that is lead 3 and AVR, if larger Q waves are present, that is normal. Okay, remember this thing. So deeper Q waves which are more than 2 millimeter or more than 0.2 millivolt may be normally present in lead AVR and lead 3, but small Q waves are present in left sided leads. And remember, no Q waves are present in chest leads V1, V2 and V3, but in V4, V5, V6 we may have small Q waves. So no Q waves in V1, V2 and V3. So let us see this ECG. Now appreciate the Q wave, the first negative deflection of ECG. Here you can see in lead 2 we have a small Q wave. You can see a very small Q wave in lead 3 also. Let us move further. In AVF you can see very small Q wave, and then you can see a Q wave somewhere in V5, very small in V6. Okay, but in V1 there is no Q wave, V2 there is no Q wave, V3 there is no Q wave. So Q wave is generally absent in lead V1, V2 and V3. It may be very small present in lead V5, V4, V6 and lead 2, and sometimes in lead 1 also. So smaller Q waves may be present in left sided leads, and deeper Q waves may present in right side leads, lead 3 and AVR. And V1, V2, V3 have absent Q waves. V5, V6 has smaller Q waves. Clear about the Q waves? So if they are larger, more than 2 millimeter, and duration is more than 1 millimeter, then it may be abnormal. Now the followed wave is R wave. R wave is the first positive upright deflection of ECG. Represent the functional activity of the heart. The first positive deflection after P wave is R wave. Represent the ventricular depolarization. It is always prominent, positive, upright, straightly rising up, or you can say sharply rising up, and height is proportional to the functional activity of the heart, and which is somewhere is equal to 1.5 to 2 millivolt, that is 15 to 20 millimeter or 15 to 20 small squares. So this is the first upright wave or first positive wave after the P wave. First negative wave of ECG was Q, or first positive wave after P is R. Represent functional activity of the ventricles. Now here is the ECG of R wave, and these R waves can be very easily appreciated. So this is the R wave in lead 2, R wave in lead V4, and in other leads also you can see the taller R waves, which are somewhere around 15 to 20 small squares. Easy to see, easy to appreciate. This is followed by S wave. S wave is the negative deflection after the R wave. So when the R wave ends, the S wave starts. The negative deflection which follows the R wave. It represents the depolarization of the more basal part of the ventricles. So after the R wave, you can very well see the S wave in lead V1. You can see in lead V1 we have a bigger S wave. This is the S wave. In lead 2 also we have a S wave. Lead V3, lead V2 we have a S wave. Lead V3 we have a S wave. In V4 we have a very small S wave. V5 we has a very small S wave, and in lead 2 also you can see a very small S wave, very small. Okay, so this is the S wave. Generally nothing specific about the time duration and the amplitudes, but these are the waves which are generally very small, or maybe larger also, but not too large like the R wave. So they are the small waves follows the R wave. They are the negative waves, represent the more basal part of the ventricles. So follow, this is the S wave. Now this QRS waves comprisingly forms the QRS complex. So we need to see these waves as a whole as well as individually also. So this QRS complex whole denotes the ventricular depolarization phase. It denotes the ventricular functioning. It denotes the functional capacity, functional activity of the heart ventricles, or you can say of the heart. So, and this duration is to be remembered. So QRS complex starts from beginning of Q wave to the end of S wave, and the duration is 2 to 3 small square, 0.08 to 0.12 seconds, and amplitude is equal to R wave, that is 15 to 20 millimeters or 1.5 to 2 millivolt. So this is the QRS complex whole. When you know about the Q wave, R wave and S wave, you can easily appreciate the QRS complex, and now you have become, I think, intelligent enough to appreciate P wave QRS complex. Okay, so let us move further. T wave, another important wave to remember. Like Q wave, it also denotes the ischemic and infarction patterns as well as the ventricular strain pattern. So this wave is also to be seen very carefully. T wave represents the ventricular repolarization. Always positive, not upright like P wave. It is upslopingly positive and rounded. 5 to 7 small square broader, that is 0.27 seconds, and 5 small square taller, that is 0.5 millivolt. And T wave follows the direction of QRS. That means in if in any of the leads QRS is more of the positive side, that means R is larger. So in any of the leads, if QRS is more of the positive side, the T wave has to be positive in that lead. So this is the one clinical tip. So T wave is positive in all the leads where QRS is more of the positively deflected. Now see the diagram, and you again need to appreciate the left and right side. In left side we have lead V5, V6, lead 1, 2, AVL. In these leads, the T wave has to be positive. So T wave in the chest leads of left side has to be positive, and in AVR and lead 3 it may be negative. Q wave was smaller in left side leads, and in AVR and lead 3 it was larger. T wave upright in left leads and downright or downward in right sided leads, that is AVR and lead 3. So in left side chest leads we have the positive T wave. In right side leads AVR and lead 3 it may be inverted or it may be negatively deflected, which is normal. Now T wave in right side chest leads, that is V1 and V2, as I have said, in right side leads AVR lead 3 it may be inverted, as well as in right side chest leads V1 and V2 it may be negatively deflected, it may be inverted. But gradually it becomes positive in left side chest leads. So it is normal to have an inverted T wave in V1 or V2, but in further leads it has to be positive. Or in another way I will say, if in any of the chest leads whenever it becomes positive after negative, it has to follow its positive pattern in further chest leads. So if it was negative in V1 but has become positive in V2, then in V3, V4, V5, V6 it has to remain positive. If after becoming positive it is becoming negative in any of the lead, it represents some abnormality. So T wave in right side chest leads V1 and V2 may be negative, as deflection of QRS is more negative in these leads. T wave is positive in any chest lead, it has to remain positive in further leads. Now you can appreciate the T wave in this ECG. First of all, let us go with the lead 2. You can see the T wave here. Lead 3 you can see the T wave here. Now come to the V1. You can see a inverted T wave in V1. In V2 it is becoming positive. In V3 it has to be positive. V4 it will render positive. V5 it will be positive, and V6 it will be positive. So you can appreciate the T wave in chest leads. If it has become positive in V2, it has to remain positive in further leads, but in V1 and V2 it may be inverted, and it is normal. Okay. Now this T wave is followed by U wave. A very small wave, may be not present, or may if present it is of too small square border, generally absent. Represents the papillary muscle repolarization, rounded and positive after T wave, 0.08 second, that is 2 millimeter, and 0.2 millivolt in height. Generally absent, but may be seen in lead V1 and V2. Now this followed by J point. Just for the knowledge I am telling this, nothing specific about this J point. It is the point where the S wave joins the baseline, the point between S wave and ST segment. Here is the J point. Now normal waves of ECG. Now you can very well appreciate the ECG waves. The P wave representing arterial depolarization, 3 small square broader, 3 small square taller. QRS complex represent ventricular depolarization, positively deflected, represent the functional activity of the heart, 0.08 to 0.12 second and 1.5 to 2 millivolt. T wave follows QRS complex, always upright or upright in the leads where QRS is mainly positive, 5 small square taller, 5 small square broader. U wave, small wave after T wave, represent papillary muscle repolarization. Now you need to remember ECG pattern of different limb leads. Just a simple clinical tip I will tell you about these ECG, about this ECG pattern in limb leads. That clinical tip is basically in left sided leads. That means when the heart, in normal condition, the excitation wave of the heart moves from right to left. So in left side leads we have the positive complexes, but in right sided leads, from where the impulse is going away, we will be having the negative deflection. These two clinical tricks I gave you in my lecture 1. So you can see and you remember that triaxial diagram, and as per that diagram you can see the different patterns of ECG in different leads. In left sided leads you have more positive deflections, and in right sided leads AVR and lead 3 you have more negative deflections in normal conditions. So in left side, lead 1, lead 2 AVF, on mainly AVL, you have the positive deflections, and right sided you have the negative deflection. Always remember AVR. AVR is the lead from where the impulse is going away, because impulse moves right to left. It is the lead from where the impulse is going just opposite to this lead. So this lead will always be negative. It will be showing all the complexes in negatively. Lead in this lead V1, or in this lead AVR, P is negative, QRS complex is negative, T wave is negative. It is normal for this lead. If this lead becomes positive, it may be a possibility either this is lead is wrongly placed or some abnormality of the heart. The impulse is moving toward that lead. That means the cardiac electrical axis has become opposite, and that may happen in conditions like dextrocardia. So this is first thing, you can say this is one of the things which is to be seen at the earliest in the ECG before interpreting. AVR has to be negative. And one more thing, remember, the lead which is showing in the limb lead which is showing the maximum positive deflection, that shows that impulse is moving toward that lead. Like in all these leads, the lead 2 is showing maximum positive deflection. Here the impulse is moving toward this lead 2. It is normal. We will be discussing about this later on also in our further lectures. So remember this ECG pattern in the limb leads. Easy to remember, that is in AVR it has to be negative, in other leads it is to be positive, and more positive represent that toward that lead the impulse is moving to. Now ECG pattern in the V1 to V6 chest leads. Remember the R wave progression. The R wave in V1 has to be smaller, and it gradually increases up to V6. So this is known as our normal R wave progression from V1 to V6. If R wave is larger in V1, this is abnormal. It has to be smaller, and then it has to progress through a larger one toward V6. It has to follow this pattern also, not the vice versa. So in V1 you can see a small R wave, V2 a small R wave, V3 and V4 follows, and V5 another R wave and lesser S wave now, and V6 a R wave and very or absent S wave. So R wave progresses, S wave decreases in cases of in chest leads from V1 to V6. This is the normal ECG pattern of V1 to V6. Now this is the ECG of a patient. We need not to see the abnormality, just appreciate the waves which you have learned just now. So let us start with the lead 2. It is the lead 2 which is mainly seen in the ECGs, which has to be seen basically to know all the changes in or all the abnormalities. Mainly all the leads is to be seen, but lead 2 is really important to see, rather specifically for the rhythms. Now you can see in lead 2 a very small P wave, 2 small square larger, 2 small square broader, followed by a small Q wave of 2 mm, R wave around 120 mm complex 1.5 to 2 millivolt, followed by a small S wave, very small baseline, followed by the T wave, 5 small square taller, around 4 small square broader. So this is the lead 2, P wave, Q, R, S and T wave. In AVR, appreciate this, all the complexes has to be negative. Negative P wave. First positive deflection after P wave is R. Here there is no S wave. It may be present, but here there is no Q wave. It may be present. It may give a negative deflection which is of larger type, but here no Q wave. So first positive deflection after P is R. P negative, small r, S more negative, T negative. This is the normal pattern of AVR. It has to be negative. Okay. Then AVF you can see positive, more small Q wave, R, small s, T. Now standardization marks you can see 10 mm. So this is the lead 1, lead 2, lead 3, AVR, AVL, AVF, ECG. Okay. Now ECG of V1 and V2, or V1, V2, V3, V4, V5 and V6, that is chest leads. Let us see small biphasic P wave, RS pattern, T inverted. In V1 we can have a inverted T wave, then T is becoming positive in V2, then it has to remain positive in V3, V4, V5, V6. So T wave we have seen inverted normal in V1. R wave progression, R wave followed by larger R wave in V2, V3 larger, V4, V5, V6, and S wave is getting smaller, normal R wave progression. In V5, V6 we have the smaller Q waves, but absent in V1, V2 and V3. So this is a normal ECG. So you have become now intelligent enough or expert enough to appreciate the normal waves of ECG. I hope you understand my lecture. Okay, so thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed the lecture. Keep your heart healthy, happy and moving, and please share your comments, and if something is not clear you can send your queries in comment section. So subscribe to my channel Medical Study for further updates of ECG Simplified series. Thank you again.